Hi everyone, how are you doing? I'm Sarah Parsons, cosmeticsbusiness.com's editor and editor of Pure Beauty. Thank you for joining us, and if you came back from yesterday, welcome. It's nice to see you again. Today we'll be talking about making luxury sustainable, a big topic. And before we get started and I introduce everyone, I just kind of wanted to share some stats to kind of set the scene. Prestige Beauty, sales are up 20% this year in the UK, particularly this is according to MPD, and makeup refills are on the up, so that's particularly interesting. 364% up in the UK. So real innovation happening in that category. In comparison, makeup sales in general was up 30%, so big difference. Similarly, another stat I thought would be quite interesting to share with you, larger formats are particularly growing in luxury. For example, fragrance juices over 100 mils, sales for those rose over 50% in the UK this year. But yes, aside from oh my god, I can't talk today, sorry. Long day. Sorry, oh my god, what is wrong with me? Okay. Refillable formats, there you go, I've got it, and larger formats as well. We're going to be covering a lot of ground, but I thought it'd be easier if you introduce yourselves, because you'll be able to sum up exactly what you do better than I will. Do you want to get started, Eva?
Cool. Yeah, thank you, Sarah. Hi, everybody. I'm Eva Lagarde. I've launched a platform called Resources, and it's a platform to educate beauty brands about sustainability. And I actually target marketing and product development, because I find there's a lot of misunderstanding about what sustainability is actually. And it's really complex in product development to pick the right solution, because there is no perfect solution today. It's more like a, test and learn, I guess. And so I've built a platform, Resources. So it's re-sources.co. And you can find me.
Cool. Simon?
Thank you.
And I'm Simon Dipple. As you'll be able to see, I've been in this industry for quite a while. Slightly over 20 years ago, I was helping WWF with their thinking on materials and recycling and how they could influence their own marketing materials. But my background goes way past that to 30 years ago when I was heading up a packaging business, and that's what I'm involved with today. The important thing is, though, that the materials that we use have changed a lot, and there's a lot more we can do now with the new ways of thinking, how we can shorten supply chains, improve how we behave on a day-to-day basis, and hopefully I'll be able to help you some practical thoughts on that today.
Absolutely. Cool. So it went in straight away, mentioned refills. It's a big thing happening in beauty right now. Body Shop rolling out across the UK. Harrods have got their own format. Obviously, Sephora's recently launched into the UK. They're venturing into refills as well, and so is Selfridges. So, Eva, what do you think about refillable packaging in luxury beauty?
I think it's really actually it works well with luxury beauty, because I found that the mistake that people have made in the past months, and you could see that with the Kim Kardashian launch, with the KKM launch, where they received backlash online because they had a refill that was actually the outer packaging was just another plastic shell, and the inner cartridge was working on itself. It didn't need an outer packaging, and that's one of the common mistakes that I saw with refill recently. And what I find interesting with refill beauty, especially in the luxury segment, you can actually spend more into your host packaging, where you can make it like with ceramic or with very a keepsake material that you want to keep because it's beautiful, because it lasts longer, because it's sensorial. It's got something different. You can feel. It can be in wood. It can be in ceramic. But you're going to spend more money into that packaging, and then your refill can be just something that you throw away that is easy to recycle. And then you don't work on the design of this refill. You can if you like, but I think for luxury it's particularly adapted because you can spend more on the host packaging. That's what I would say.
Absolutely. And also from a retail perspective, like customer experience in store, like getting it engraved, keeping it for a very long time, keeping it an item that you treasure.
Yeah, I agree, and I think one of the trends that we're going to see in the future is like packaging will disappear, like the waste and the wasteful packaging, the packaging to throw away, because today there's a lot of single-use plastic on the market, but it's going to be prohibited in European Union by 2030, we won't be able to have single-use plastic. So we have to find a solution. And today, you talked about the 360% plus on refill. I think it's also because there was nothing on the market before. In a year, there was a lot, so that's why the increase. But the brands are telling that people are not actually refilling their packaging so much. I mean, who in this room has finished a lipstick ever? Have you ever finished a lipstick? No. So it's really hard to refill your lipstick. Fragrance, it takes a few months as well to refill. So it's, we need to find a new way to give consumers an experience that would work for the product that we make. And I don't know if you saw, but with the Hourglass, the refill lipstick is actually very thin. So chances are you're going to finish this lipstick quicker than a regular lipstick. So be creative about the way you're going to refill and make people feel like a sensorial something that they live. And packaging is going to disappear in a sense that it's not going to be called packaging anymore. It's going to be like something that you use, a device or whatever you call it. And so think about the way you connect your consumer with the packaging.
So I actually want to add on to that because there's a really lovely new brand they've just launched into the UK called Emma Lewisham. They're a New Zealand skincare brand, luxury, and their focus is all about circular economy and going beyond refill. They actually take back the packaging, wash it, and then refill it and give it back to the consumer. And I was having a chat with Emma recently, and I asked her about this because we were chatting about how retailers anecdotally saying how much a struggle it is to get people to buy refills. And I asked her, and she sells in Mecca, which is Australia's
Sephora,
exactly, and 44% of her sales in Mecca are refills. And I was like, that's incredible. So there is the opportunity there, I think, if you very vocal about it.
Yeah, I think it will come. It will work. Today, it's so you can only find refills in specific stores. It's not everywhere, but it will become mainstream because legally we'll have to be. We will have to go through refill, and so. But for now, it's difficult for the retailer. There's no space. It's difficult for the consumer because they don't think to bring their bottle back or whatever. It's difficult for us as a supply chain because we have to change the entire logistic. So it's just a hassle right now. So nobody wants really to do refill, but I'm guessing it's going to come, and it's about us think about new creative way to use your packaging and to make it more like connected to the consumers.
And Simon, what about the unboxing experience? We talk about packaging and excess packaging, but there is something really the consumer wants that, right?
Absolutely, but even though refillable isn't my sphere of expertise, I've got something. I mean, we've just been talking about the carbon footprint that we create when we go to store to refill. And I think that's where the packaging that you start off with, when you receive the goods in the first instance, we've got to think more cleverly around how we get that returned and how it is refilled to stop that secondary journey going back to refill just to refill. And as Eva said, there's so many few places. So if you're then thinking about your packaging in the first instance, that then can be kept. So a pack that could be collapsible, can go on the side, then can be taken back out, effectively refabricated yourself to return it back to get refilled and then return back to you again using a courier network which broadly has got a lower carbon footprint than us as individual consumers going to do something as a single trip journey. It's wise. So just trying to think then holistically about our whole journeys and how we create packaging or create our product and the packaging that lists around it I think is really important.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But I mean, can luxury packaging be sustainable? I mean, in my humble opinion, absolutely yes. But again, it really starts right at the beginning, thinking about your journey and your product. And I mean, for me personally, I believe that we need to squeeze out the middle ground of packaging. Packaging has to become easily recyclable, reusable, returnable right at the outset. So anything that exists in that middle ground, for me, should be removed. And then what's left is really, it's that luxury that, I mean, we're human beings at the end of the day. We're born to evolve and we love developing ourselves. So when you receive that packaging, if you have that feeling of absolute thrill of opening something up and then you keep it afterwards, that for me, the investment in that product and that packaging then can be reused. The energy that you get from that can be reused to change your behaviours in other areas. So you'll take out the waste that you've got in life in one respect and focus on something that really is luxury. And I mean, from a manufacturing perspective, there is so much we can do now in terms of shortening that supply chain, thinking about materials we use, using more wisely, taking parts out of it so that then, I mean, I'd encourage everybody in here to think about how you educate your customers about your packaging itself to how they then dispose of it after use. And that's that. If there's one important thing today that we could communicate is that education part. Tell people what you're doing in terms of your sustainable journey itself and how you've developed your packaging.
Yeah, but it's very complex to know what to do with the packaging at the end of life, because it's different in the UK than it is in France, than it is in the US. So it's quite complex. That's why I would recommend to brands to just be like very broad and then, in a sense, educate, but also like instead of saying packaging fully recyclable, you should say packaging is deemed recyclable, but we can't guarantee that it will be recycled within your living space. So make sure that you check locally what you can do with your packaging, because everybody's claiming fully recyclable, is claiming compostable, whatever. But this is disturbing. I would go with more details about what you mean about recyclability of the packaging.
Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. And sadly, in the UK, we are behind many countries in terms of household waste recycling. There are some great resources out that you can go to help educate you about what materials and what can be recycled where. But in terms of the raw materials themselves, I think you really need to think about getting some expertise on board and helping you understand the best options for you for that particular project itself. Sometimes it could be as simple as making sure you're using a grey board that's of higher quality, that is fully certified. It actually can be lighter weight, it can therefore be thinner, therefore there's less waste at the end of the day, but it still has that luxury feel to the pack itself. And that goes across many, many materials. So I'd really encourage people to think about the constituent parts of the pack, and it does come back to getting an expert on the team right at the start as a partner and talking about okay, what is your product? How does it go to market? How do we design the complete pack around or the product and its packaging around disposability or reusability?
And consumers are like getting savvy about excess packaging, and they don't want it, or they'll happily call it out if it is a bit ridiculous, to be quite honest. Because I don't know if you've seen, but Kylie Jenner's brand basically was selling a cardboard box for $100. Yeah, you saw that? So yeah, it was basically selling one gift set, and then they were selling exactly the same gift set, but it was called a PR box, and it was just $100 for like the cardboard box, and that got torn apart by consumers online. So yeah, they will understand there is not a need for that unnecessary packaging aspect. Something I did want to, particularly on luxury, if something is costly, it often weighs a bit heavier because it feels beautiful in your hand. But similarly, some brands now are experimenting with removing the weights from packaging and trying to educate the consumer about heavy doesn't mean expensive or luxury or good quality product. So what kind of trajectory do you see happening there? Eva?
You mean in terms of the carbon footprint and maybe going...
The weight in itself, you know, when like... so that like...
It's difficult because in luxury you have to make, you have to make packaging heavy. That's why there's a lot of weight that are being added to the caps or to things. Yeah. And the complexity of that is obviously this is not recyclable then because you have a mix of material. But what we see right now I think heavy is still going to be the standard in the industry, because when you talk to people and when you try to remove the weight into the mascara or into the lipstick, they're like, oh, it looks cheap. Yeah. So we're going to have some time to educate consumers. You're probably going to be 5 to 10 years to take them to that journey that actually packaging doesn't need to be heavy, but today it's heavy. And one way to do that is to use, for instance, like a ceramic cap. Like I saw a supplier at a conference the other day, and they did a ceramic cap, and because ceramic in itself is quite heavy, then there's no weight, there's nothing else, and then the ceramic, you can keep it for longer. And or maybe using, and you can also now charge some plastic cap or some plastic with added plastic as well, which is heavier. And then you can have, now there's a new innovation as well from Eastman, where you have, this heavy wall packaging that you use is plastic for lip gloss or something. Now it's from PET grade, chemically recycled. And because it's a PET grade, it's recyclable within the PET stream as well. So we can see this kind of innovation coming up on the market, which are interesting, giving still the sense of luxury. But I don't think with luxury, we're going to move away from weight of the packaging, and that's where the carbon impact is quite heavy. So think about the monomateriality of of the packaging, making it using one material, making a cap keepsake, because you can keep the cap, the product will still be safe, and then you have a inside the bottle you can have a lid that keeps the product safe, and you use the cap again, etc. So I don't know, try to find, because there's a lot of solution on the market today, on the supply side especially, where you can have the sense of luxury without adding too many different materials together, just one material. Even with paper today you can have, interesting, maybe you can say about this, but you can have heavyweight or like luxury feel paper and be really clean in terms of the ink you use, and etc.
Yeah, I mean, what we're talking about here is one sense. I mean, we all respond to products through our senses. So with weight, we're talking about how when we pick it up, one sense is being triggered. But then you've got so many other things you can do. I mean, obviously, in a room like this, we don't want to talk about fragrance and smell. But then just by touching something, so if you use the right materials themselves, the paper coating on the top of the product, and use something that sends off, triggers your touch senses, if you've got the right visual impact from your eyes as well, and you're seeing something that's beautiful, at the end of the day, it's a compromise. You've got to think about all these things in weighted averages and how we behave as consumers. But ultimately, there is a way to be. I mean, we just talked about grey board. Using dense grey board, it's still thinner, so therefore you can make a product that actually is less effectively damaging to the environment by using better quality materials in itself. And we've got a pack we're designing at the moment where we're using laser engraving but mixing other print techniques in with it, so that we're only engraving the areas where we touch with our hands, but your eyes being persuaded that the whole image has been engraved. So just being intellectual with thoughts, and therefore now we've got something that looks like it's been completely hand engraved, but it's been part engraved and part printed, and you end up with something that really has a super high impact when we pick it up and touch it.
Yeah, it's interesting because you can get a long way with decoration, good decoration, and especially right now when you move to like more natural, more better for the environment decorations, where you would have tinted colors and stuff that are still clean for the environment. So. Yeah, you could get a long way with the right decoration.
Yeah, I mean, for a long time, most print techniques have been migrated to using vegetable-based inks. But as Eva said, there are many other processes now. I mean, driving out waste, which is obviously it's the most common understanding of how we can be more environmentally sound. But actually, by using the right techniques that reduces waste in the manufacturing process, we're all benefiting because we're putting much less into landfill.
And I think because we are in a situation where we have more restrictions now with the environment, with the regulations, etc., we need to be more creative. So why don't we do, like a workshop with our consumers, with a few people, with our staff, and then like, how can we apply lipstick a different way? How can we do this? Because I don't know. I'm just trying. We need to be more creative because we have more restrictions. So let's just be creative.
And speaking of restrictions and regulations, what are some of the key ones that we need to keep an eye out for?
Well, the single-use plastic by 2030 in Europe will be prohibited. There is also the removal of non-recyclable material by 2040, I think. So anything that hasn't come into a recycling stream in Europe is going to be prohibited to be put on the market. So ABS is a good example, for instance, because even though ABS is recycled in an industrial way, like the industrial waste, ABS is mostly used for electronic components, this kind of thing, also make a compact, but there's no public recycling streams, so it's in discussion right now whether we're going to be able to keep ABS. But a lot of manufacturers are phasing out ABS and replacing it with other material. There's an example with the HCP and the EcoWood, actually, that is offering a solution to ABS, but all of this is going to be prohibited.
Well, the extender producer responsibilities kicking in Jan 1st the next year, which cover a requirement to record much of your usage of packaging materials, and it's actually, when I've printed out some of the documents on it just as a reminder to myself, because the legislation is far-reaching, and but it will drive us all to think differently about packaging, and it's great in that respect.
And there's a lot of also a lot of regulation in France, actually very stringent, where you have to indicate in your packaging with a specific details about what the packaging is made of and how you recycle each piece of the packaging. For beauty, under 20 centimeters, this can be just a smaller version and then digitalize afterwards. In Italy, you've got the same problem as well, and this is going to come in other countries, I'm sure, Germany, etc., where you have to be more specific in what you say on your pack, and this is going to be financially, there's going to be some tax as well on this, so you have got to be, packaging hasn't been, why is packaging right now targeted? Because it wasn't before. When you look at the cosmetics regulation, it's all about the formulation and the ingredients and the chemical that you put in your formulation. Now it's all about the packaging, because we have completely forgotten about what to do with packaging. And in France and in the European Commission, they're also working on the standard for packaging. What is actually sustainable packaging? So they're going to come up with a definition. And maybe one day we won't be able to use any metallization. I don't know, but it could be. And there's the new Chemical Act, which is coming in the next few weeks, that is going to prevent a lot of product as well.
And then there's the discussion as well, like banning sachets and things like that, which is critical for sampling and everything like that.
I mean, there's a lot businesses could do today. I mean, if you work with your supply chain, make sure they've got good chain of custody in place. There is absolutely some clever, intelligent ways now with blockchain that larger businesses can really start to think about how they deploy that within their supply chain for knowledge. I mean, we all have a responsibility, supply chain, designers and manufacturers, to understand how we all fit together and understand the threats and risks that are there.
Yeah, speaking of supply chain, Provenance, who's here, they've done a great job in terms of cult beauty and that transparency there. Really worth visiting. Educating consumers is a challenge. We've touched on it a bit, but is there any key tips you think to try and push that message?
Yeah,
should you?
I think actually you shouldn't talk about sustainability.
Okay.
I think because it's a really tricky space, and if you say something, then you might go wrong. So I think you should develop your product to be more sustainable. You should make sure that everything is sustainable. You should have pages on your website where you explain how your product are sustainable, how your packaging is recycled, etc. But don't promote your sustainability work. Don't promote it, because this comes with backlash. Because something that is true today may not be true tomorrow. And this is not your fault. It's because regulations are evolving, materials are evolving, so information is evolving. So we don't know what's true today. So do the work, do the background work, put the information on your website, everything that the consumer needs to know when they search about your product and the sustainability aspect, but don't promote it.
Simon, what do you think?
Well, I mean, I think packaging is a great format to get, for all marketing departments to deliver a message. And I mean, the most simple thing, having a QR code on your pack, you can have those discreetly designed into your pack. It's not like 15 years ago where you need a separate app. We all know how to use them now. So I think having a QR code there to educate the clients, or your customers, I should say, of the pack itself, as we touched on earlier, how to dispose of it after use. There's great things you can do with near-field technology and RFCs as well. So there's an awful lot you can do with on-pack education, as Eve said. Make sure you've got, just doing something that so many businesses aren't doing today. There's one thing. Let's make a step forward and actually get that information out there.
And I think we need to be wary of the eco-anxiety, because it's a real thing. And so when we talk about the sustainability aspect and educating consumers, we put pressure on them because they have the pressure to dispose of the product at the end of use. But we need to make sure that it's as easy as possible. I was against that even a few months ago, because I don't think life is convenient, and we talk about convenience all the time, and that's why we see a resistance with refillable and etc., because we focus on convenience all the time. But life is not convenient, so we need to move away from that. Having said that, if you want your consumer to adopt a new behavior, you need to make it convenient. So be careful with the eco-anxiety. Make sure that, as you said, everything is clear on your pack and everything is well thought out. But it starts with design. Design better product.
Yeah, absolutely. Beauty tech and obviously devices is growing massively in luxury, and so I know there are some schemes and brands who do a take-back surface when it's the end of life, or how to deal with tech waste is becoming a bit of an issue as well. So yeah, that's something to, in terms of innovation, design better, take it back, that kind of stuff as well. In terms of tips, what kind of some top tips do you have for making luxury sustainable?
I think don't be black or white. Don't be like, this is good, this is bad. because as we know, everything is evolving, and if you pick a solution, and there's no extreme today, and there's not the perfect solution on the market. I would recommend you, when you select a solution, to even be transparent with your consumers, like, we want to do this, but today this is not achievable because the level of technology in this fragment of the market is not where we want it to be, but we are heading there in 3, 5, whatever many times you see. So the best option for us was to pick that solution. This is what we do for the packaging today, in the hope that tomorrow we'll be able to do that one. And so be completely transparent about your process. This is a way to remove the anxiety as well. We can't do this today. We try our best. That's the best solution we find. And tomorrow we're going to do this.
Simon?
Well, it does follow that thinking in terms of, I mean, absolutely write down where you are today. Be honest with yourselves and say, where am I today? Where do I want to be in 12 months, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years? And then build your plan around that. And quite quickly, just by stopping and getting some external advice about where you are today, you'll find some low-hanging fruit. They're there. There's lots of great thinkings that have been in the manufacturing world for years. Lean, but lean plus is something I'd ask you to think about today. So how you think about how you create something that is lean, but also thinks about the planet as well, and sustainability is really important. And then once you've taken those low-hanging fruit, use that money to reinvest in where you're going in the future, and then think about the next stage of development. Because I'm pretty much certain any organisation, if they really genuinely stop where they are today, they'll find there will be some low-hanging fruit there they can take.
Absolutely, and I think also as well, we're seeing great initiatives come up, like the Eco Beauty School Consortium, which spearheaded by L'Oreal's and Unilever's of the world, but it really is open for brands of all sizes, and so getting involved in community and discussing ideas and sharing platforms, and in regards to sustainability, it can't just be independent, can it?
Yeah, and educate yourself, because if you want to pass on the message, you need to know what you are doing, which is really complex. So.
Yeah.
We will be taking questions if anyone has any. No?
No questions?
No questions?
We've been really clear?
We're good? Okay. Is there anything else you'd like to add before we wrap things up? No. Okay.
No.
Yeah, again, I would say not to be too extreme about whatever you do, and give yourself some space as well to learn and to define your strategy. And as Simon said, I think it's really interesting to have a vision of where you want to go, because today there's no perfect solution, but tomorrow there might be a better solution. So have a plan for where you want to be.
Wonderful. Well, thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you.
Pleasure.